What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Barbados Walker. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 things I wish I knew before moving to Barbados. These are things that I personally wish I knew before coming here, and if I had known these things, it would have greatly influenced the way that I interacted with Bajans when I got here, how I navigated government processes, and how I spent my money, which is very, very important because I would have spent way less money, much less money, if I had known these things that I'm about to tell you today. So, without further ado, we're going to dive in. However, before we begin, let me first give an update, an announcement to some of my existing subscribers. Now, if you have been a subscriber for the past few months, you know that I have been studying to get my master's degree in business administration with specialization in international business. Well, good news, guys, because I have officially graduated. In the past few weeks, maybe like 6 weeks or so, about a month and a half, I haven't posted any videos here because I was in the process of doing my final capstone project, and the courses before that capstone project were very, very stressful. And I had to take some time off, about 2 weeks, to complete one of them. I told you guys about that. But then when I got to the capstone, it was even more challenging, and I had to take even more time off from posting here so that I could completely focus on that. The good news and the silver lining to all of this is that I graduated with a 4.0 GPA. That is the highest GPA you can get, and I got the 4.0. So all the effort, all the stress, all the everything finally paid off. Maybe sometime next year or sometime in 2 years from now, I'll pursue my doctoral degree. But for now, I'm very happy with my master's degree, and I'm going to use that to continue improving some of my businesses, maybe launch a few more businesses, maybe get a job here, and so on and so forth. Get a job with a company, and so on and so forth. And these are some of the things that I'm pursuing. But back to the video. So, the first thing is that Barbados is not predominantly a racist country. This is something that I learned, that I had to adapt myself to after staying in Barbados for about a month or two. Because coming from Africa, well, we have tribalism in Africa, right? If you're from the Igbo tribe, especially in Nigeria, which is where I'm from, if you're from the Igbo tribe, then there's tribalism against people who are from the Yoruba tribe or the Hausa tribe or Ijo, Idoma, and all these other tribes. And there is prejudice and discrimination most times between these. So I was familiar with tribalism, but we don't have a lot of white people or people from different races and stuff like that in where I grew up. So I wasn't so familiar with racism. However, when I got out of Africa, when I stepped out of Nigeria and went into the world, right? I noticed that if there is a white person and a black person in the same country, there is going to be some form of racism. And in my experience, the black, I don't know whether I can say this thing without getting people cussing and saying, oh, he's just hating and stuff. But in my experience, the black people today are more racist than the white people, because many of the black people that I met outside Africa when I left were they found a way to tie a lot of things back to race. So whether it has to do with job opportunities or education or I don't know, politics or something, they found a way to tie it back to race. And when you're discussing with people from China, people from the Middle East, people from South America, they're talking about business opportunities and injustice and policies and stuff like that. But when you're talking to especially Black Americans, you'll see that a lot of these conversations center around race and race predominantly. So I thought in my mind that the West, by the West, I mean the United States and Australia, and no, the United States and the United Kingdom, and countries around the United States and the United Kingdom. So maybe places like the Caribbean, places like Canada, places like all of these places will focus predominantly on a race as well, because this has been my experience when talking to people from the West. But when I came to Barbados, I realized that that is not the focus of the conversation. When people see you, they do not want to pass judgment on you or make certain claims about you simply because you're black, or simply because you're white, or simply because you have a particular type of skin color. And from coming from outside Barbados, there's this question that always made me tense up when somebody asks, "Where are you from?" And that question, that question was like, it was a trap every time somebody said it. Because when you say something like Africa, you just see the person will go up, like go off on a rant and start talking about, well, all these people, they come into a country and they mash up everything. I tell you, they behave like wild animals. They don't have any decency. They all scammers and they all crazy and the person will just go off on a rant right in front of you, facing you, talking to you, and he just met you like 30 seconds ago. And he's already talking all this stuff, right? And it's it's not the race thing, it's that he's saying, because if you look at the person that is talking to you, the person is not a white person. The person is a black person with the same skin color as you. Because if you've been to Barbados, you know that a lot of the people in Barbados are dark skinned, African descent, right? So there are some whites here and obviously people of other descent, and but majority of the people you're going to see on the street are dark skinned. So I thought coming from Africa, well, that shouldn't be a problem, and also with many other countries in the Caribbean. But with my experience in the rest of the Caribbean, and this is not, I'm not talking about Barbados specifically, because my experience in Barbados was completely different from what I'm explaining now, and I'll get to that. But my experience in the Caribbean, where you have a lot of black people, is they're talking about Africans as if Africans are lesser humans many times. And you'll be hearing from a black person with African ancestry, and he'll just be talking trash about about Africans and stuff like that. And it's not about race. It's mostly because these people are finding an excuse to blame someone else for everything they think is wrong with their country. So they're not going to hold their governments accountable. They're not going to hold themselves responsible for not taking advantage of the opportunities that are present in their country. Instead, they're just looking for, who is this foreign guy that is coming here that I can, accuse and attack for all this stuff, right? Another example is the people that are pro-African. Like, I've met some people in the Caribbean that feel like the African land is the motherland and it's the sacred place and all of that. Is the best place on earth. Africa is the greatest and blah blah blah. And while you're talking all these nice things and good things and greatness about Africa, how Africa is this wonderful place, they start condemning almost every other race right in front of you. So you say something like, "You're from Africa," and then they'll say, "Oh, the motherland, and it's such a great place, and I like the place and the stuff." And then next minute you're hearing, "Well, all these Pakistanis and Syrians, they come into we country and they bribe the government and they take up all the businesses and they displace all the locals and all of that. They take away we jobs, we rights, and while we people are unemployed, they just come in here and destroying the country and taking away we opportunities." And the whole time I'm thinking, I thought we were going to have a conversation about what me and you have in common, how we can be friends, how we can build a country. But instead, I'm sitting down here listening to a 30-minute lecture about why you don't like Pakistanis and Syrians. And I don't get it, right? So, coming into the Caribbean, coming into Barbados specifically, not just Caribbean, all the other Caribbean nations around, I was expecting something similar. I was expecting that once you tell somebody you're from Africa or you're from Nigeria specifically, they are going to be in one of two categories. Either they will bash Africa and Nigeria right in front of you, telling you about how it's horrible, how it's this, how it's that, you're coming into the country, destroying the country and everything. Or they will praise Africa and hold it in such high regard and then bash every other nation, every other ethnicity that they don't like. They'll bash the Mexicans, they'll bash the Brazilians, they'll bash the Syrians and the Pakistanis and stuff like that. So that was what I was expecting. And at some point, it just started becoming so exhausting and cumbersome. So whenever I'm talking with somebody and they say, "Where are you from?" you just breathe a sigh of relief. Like, you just sigh and it's not relief. It's like, oh God, here we go again. And then you say, I'm from Africa. But when I said that in Barbados, when I came to Barbados and I said that, because I used to avoid conversations like that, but when I said it in Barbados, I realized that these people are not asking so that they can blame you or blame another country for everything they think is wrong with their country and the government and their job opportunities and themselves and everything. They really just want to get to know you. Like, where are you from? You specifically, an individual that has come to visit my country. Where are you from? I would like to learn to know more about you, right? And then you say, and they say, oh, what part? I know Lagos. And they always pronounce it Lagos because there's a place in Portugal called Lagos. But the one in Nigeria is pronounced Lagos. It's the same, the exact same spelling, but in Nigeria, the one in Nigeria is pronounced Lagos, and the one in Portugal is pronounced Lagos. But they just mix it up most times in the Caribbean. So you hear somebody say, "Oh, I know about Lagos, and I know about Abuja. You're from Abuja?" I'm like, no, those are the two populous states in Nigeria, but I'm not from any one of them. And it just becomes a nice conversation. How I grew up, where I went to school, and then they tell me, "Oh, the school system there is similar to ours, but it's kind of different." And then they tell me how their school system is and how they went, where they went to school, and then they start talking about education, business opportunities, tourism, diversification of the economy in Barbados, the ideas they have, and sometimes they talk about the government too. Like you hear things like, "Oh, the government hasn't been doing well recently, and I would prefer, like, if the government could just do this and that and that and that. And when it comes to immigration policies, if the government can put these things in place, when it comes to export and import, if the government can do this." You find people who are like, they're just talking like intelligent human beings. And it's no surprise because Barbados has the highest literacy rate in the Caribbean. Barbados and Trinidad, 99.9% of the population of Barbados are literate. That is a very high number. So I think because of such a high literacy rate, you don't see a lot of people who are just, for lack of a better word, stupid and ill-informed and just blatantly racist, or like have no common sense. When they talk sensibly. Even if you hear something that sounds like just like racial prejudice from a Bayesian, it's usually backed up with mountains and mountains of verifiable fact. Like if they say something like, I don't know, black people are smarter than white people or whatever, you're going to see them quoting sources and citations and all this stuff. And it makes sense. And they're still open to hearing counter arguments. So even the quote unquote a racist bunch, because I've had like heated conversations with about two or three of them. They bring documents, and it's very interesting to see when they tell you the Caribbeans are smarter than the Africans, and they're very passionate about it. But they bring stuff, so it's not like I hate you and I think you're stupid. It's more like this is an academic debate that we can have and still live as friends. And this is the same even when you're talking with like people from other descents here, like when you're talking about people from South America or Germany, Europe, and all of these people, you have the same kind of mindset. And I think the reason for that is number one, I've already said the high literacy rate. But number two, I feel like a serious factor is the people that come into Barbados are of a certain caliber. And what do I mean by that? They're not just people that are trooping in because there's no other place to go in the world. They're usually people that are coming in with business ideas, with investment ideas, with people that are coming in to enrich the country. Either they were hired as teachers in the universities or nurses to work at the hospitals or something like that. So they are quite educated where they are coming from, or they have some business, knowledge to add to the country. And so they're not just illiterates with warped ideas of reality, and they're just spewing garbage everywhere. And I think that, coupled with the high literacy rate of Barbados, makes it a very, very nice place to have conversations, just simple conversations with other human beings, looking at them as individual human beings, not just rah, 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 rah. I don't know how to explain it, but by now you get the point, right? So now, when I hear someone ask me, where are you from? I just say, oh, now from Nigeria. And I know that the conversation is going to be very nice and enjoyable, because the only people, from my experience anyway, that are going to ask you where are you from are going to be like people who are genuinely interested in you. Now, let's do a caveat here. I've also met idiots because, like I always say, even Jesus Christ, the Son of God, didn't have a perfect set of apostles. There was still a Judas. So there is going to be a Judas in the country who is still going to be a stupid racist, for lack of a better word. And he's just going to say nonsense. But I've lived here for so many years now, and I've experienced literally only one person like that in Barbados. One. With a population of about 280,000 people, one person, and I talk with a lot of people in Barbados. So only one person, that is fantastic numbers for me. That's fantastic numbers. And the guy was drunk. So so I don't even know if that's a good estimate, because maybe because he was drunk, it slipped out, and he lost his mind and started yelling and screaming, and his friends were trying to calm him down. But if he was sober, probably he wouldn't have reacted or behaved the way he did. So that is one distance. So this leads nicely into number two, which is that Barbados values community and friendliness very highly, right? So if you're coming from a place like the United Kingdom, for example, right? Um, if you're walking on the streets, you don't greet people, you don't talk to people, and you don't expect people to talk to you. And in fact, if you come from a place that has a very rich community and friendliness culture, you may feel like, okay, I see a brother on the street, is my neighbor, let me greet him. But no, it's rude. I don't understand that kind of behavior. To greet somebody and to ask somebody, how are you doing? How is the family? It's unusual for many people in the United Kingdom, for example, or even some parts of the US. So when you come to Barbados and living in those kind of places for a while, you might think that it's similar here, and you just mind your own business and you do your own thing, and you bone your face, and you make sure you look as unapproachable as humanly possible. But that is not how the people in Barbados behave. They're friendly. Their community is an important part. There are so many parks here. There are so many places that you can go on a walk. There are places that you can play football and road tennis and basketball with other people, both people who are visiting Barbados and people who are citizens of Barbados who live here. And everybody has this nice communal sense. Like if you've watched some of my videos, um, in Bridgetown, and you have the Freedom Park, and you go to Coverley, and you go to, there's so many places. There are places in St. George. There are places in what's the name of this place? The Walk. There are places in Warrens and places like that. You see that there are places where people just gather, and it's just a nice look. People actually want to talk with each other and hang out with each other and make friends and stuff like that. So that is something that you don't see in many quote unquote developed countries. Everybody is just minding his own business. And if you come with that kind of attitude in Barbados, it you can come off as a stuck up, standoffish kind of individual. So in your mind, you're thinking, oh, I'm just being polite, I'm letting everyone mind their business. And many Bajans might actually be looking at you and be like, oh, look at this mannerless foreigner again. Right? So don't just come here and say, oh, I'm gonna mind my business and I don't care, and everybody mind their own business. It's not really the best place to do that, unless maybe if you're living in a like a five-star hotel, or you live in a very secluded area, and then many of the people there are either old people or people who are retired, and most times they're just doing their own thing, then yeah. But if you're living in a place that is bubbly, a very very good example of this is Coverley, then it's good to mingle and learn about the culture and talk with the people and be friendly and integrate, because the people actually genuinely care and want to have conversations and want to make friends and want to help you. That's something else. In Barbados, if you have a problem, you can talk to your neighbor, and your neighbor will actually want to help you solve your problem, right? This is something you don't see in many developed countries. If you have a problem, it's your problem. Call 911 or something like that. I don't know. Or Google it. But here, your neighbor actually wants to, a random person on the streets will want to help you. I'm not even exaggerating. If you have a problem with your car in the middle of the road, you can just ask the very next person you see, and he will stop and help you. This has been my experience, right? So when you come to Barbados, keep that in mind. Community friendliness valued very highly. Okay, let's go to some of the. These are all good things. Let's get to some of the downsides of coming to Barbados without any knowledge, right? If you're not careful, this is number three. If you're not careful, you will spend or waste a lot of money in your first 2 months when you get here. Because Barbados is very um it's a very beautiful place for tourism, right? If tourists come here, as a nice atmosphere, nice weather, nice beaches, nice. It's the perfect in between where you get good tropical vibes and a great community and everything, but you also have the standard of living and the quality of life of many quote unquote developed countries, right? So you have the best of both worlds when you live in Barbados. But because of that, there are many bad eggs, Judases, that want to take advantage of that with scams. Yes, and these are predominantly on Facebook Marketplace. So if you if you rent a house, maybe you rent an unfurnished house and you want to furnish it, one of the things that you will do in some countries is just to go on Facebook Marketplace and see who is selling maybe something secondhand that is still good. You don't want to spend a lot of money on buying new things in the beginning. Maybe you have a tight budget or something like that. You just go on Facebook Marketplace. You find somebody who has a fridge that they don't want anymore. You buy the fridge. The fridge is okay. It was used like 2 years or something, and it's still good, and you still like it. And boom, you have a fridge. You have furniture. You have something, and you can buy even up to a car, or I don't know, uh, electric stove or oven or whatever. But when you come to Barbados, you have to be careful because there are some people who take advantage of that. One very good example that happens, or two examples I should give you. One of them is with cars. If you buy a car on Facebook Marketplace, which is something you can do and you will get good deals, but you have to be careful when doing it because sometimes the um the documents of the car they're going to give you don't match what the car actually is. So the document is supposed to have the engine number and the chassis number, but many times the number they are going to give you on the document is like one or two digits off the actual document, the actual details of the car. So, for example, this is just a random example. If the number is supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's the number that is written on the car, the chassis number, right? Or chassis number, I don't know the pronunciation. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is supposed to be the number. The documents they'll give you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 8, 9. So it won't be 6, 7, 8, 9. It'll be 6, 6, 8, 9, and they will sell it to you. And then you will try to register that car at Pine, and the government is going to tell you the document you gave us and the car you're trying to register are not the same. Bring the correct document. And if you bring the correct document, then you can register this car. But then you will go and ask the guy, you say, hey, bro, the number you gave me is wrong and blah, blah, blah. And then he will try to get you to sell it back to him at a lower price because now the car is completely useless to you, right? So he will try to sell it back to you at a lower price. And what will happen is you'll buy the car. Let's say you buy the car for $5,000. You go to try to register it. You can't register it. You contact the guy. Now he wants to buy it back from you at $3,500. So he's made 1.5. You've lost 1.5 and you don't have a car. So that is a scam that you can experience here. And the only way to avoid that scam is when you go to buy a car, you should get a mechanic that you trust to do a full inspection of the car. It's very easy to do, but many people don't think about it. Do not, okay, this is another way they can catch you. Do not use a mechanic that the guy selling you the car recommends because many times it's a two-man job. The mechanic tells you everything is fine, but he's working with the person who is trying to scam you. So don't use the guy that he recommends. Even if the guy he recommends is a good mechanic, if he recommends that guy, there is a more than 50% chance that he is working with that guy. And there is no way to truly verify. So find somebody independent and make sure that that guy is good and he offers that service and you can trust what he's telling you and so on and so forth. And then go with that guy to do the inspection. After you've done the inspection of the car, complete everything. If the guy says it's good, you say okay, and then you buy the car, you go register it, and you've avoided that scam. Another version of scams that happen on Facebook Marketplace that you can fall into is when you're buying electronics. So they'll tell you is that you should send them a deposit and then they will bring the item to you and then you pay them the full amount when you see the item. For the love of all that is good, do not send anybody a deposit. If you send them the deposit, the Facebook account, and this is also true for the people that do the car scams, car registration scams, the Facebook account will disappear. It will vanish and you wouldn't be able to find it anymore, right? So they get deposits from multiple people, they delete the Facebook account, they open a new Facebook account with a different name, a different profile picture, repeat. And there's no way to catch them because you may be thinking, oh, I have their name, I have their face. You don't have anything. The person you saw on Facebook does not exist in the real world, is a made up fictitious entity. All right, so don't do it. You either go to the person and you look at the electronic device that you want to get, maybe the fridge or whatever it is that you're buying from them, workout equipment or something, speakers, whatever. You go and look at it, you test it, you make sure it works, and you make sure you have everything is fine. Then you pay in full and you carry it back. Or if the person does delivery, the person should bring the item to your place. And when you've seen that everything is fine, you've tested it, you pay, and the person goes. Do not send deposits, even though some people do legitimate businesses like that. Because there is this scam, it is safer to pay everything in full after you have tested and verified that you are actually getting something and you're not just sending it to a bank account by a like a random person on Facebook. Okay, this is the scam. And what I decided to do, I know maybe this might be too much, but what I decided to do is just save more money and go to a reputable business location and buy what you want to buy. If you want a car, save more money, go to a reputable business location and buy a car. Or go to a reputable business location and buy a fridge. It's going to be way more expensive, but you are guaranteed safety. If you want to save money, which you can save money, you can buy on Facebook Marketplace, but make sure you are extremely cautious and you do your due diligence before you buy. The second one is before you move to so I'll tell you three ways to not spend a lot of money. The first one is avoid scams. And I was scammed before, so this is very painful for me. So that's why I'm telling you so that you don't fall for it. The second one is taxis, right? Taxis are not a scam. They're very useful. And in fact, when I came here, I used a lot of taxis. A very good app to use is the Pickup app. And if you it's like an Uber app or Bolt app if you're familiar with those apps, so you can just use them and they're great. But how you can save money is before you move here, make sure that where you're staying is along a bus route. Where you're staying in Barbados is very close to a bus route, right? Because, yes, taxis can go anywhere, but they charge sometimes 10 times more than what you would pay for a bus, 20 times more than what you would pay for a bus. For example, um, there was a place that I was living near Oysters. I think it was Oysters, yes. And if you want to take a taxi from there to somewhere around Speedstown, or is it Speightstown? I've forgotten the pronunciation again. But I think it's Speightstown, yeah. If you want to go from there to somewhere around Speightstown, you would spend close to $100 billion, if not more, right? And that is just going. You're not going to walk back, obviously. So you have to take another taxi walking back, right? For for comparison, if you were to take a bus route to go there, you can take a bus route from Oysters to Bridgetown, and then from Bridgetown to Speightstown for $7. 350 to Bridgetown, 350 to Speightstown, and then coming back. So total going and coming back will take you just $14 versus close to $200 going and coming back with taxi. And it looks like it's nothing. I mean, it's just the price you pay for living so far from, places that have bus routes. The only thing is that the drive will be like, what, 40, 50 minutes. But if you're entering bus, if you're using taxi, it's just about 40, 50 minutes. But if you're using bus, it's more like 30 minutes just to get to Bridgetown because they're going to stop at different places, pick up passengers, slow down. They'll follow the bus routes, which have more traffic and all of that combined. So you may spend like more than an hour on the journey. So that is it. But if you look at how much you're paying with that same $100, right, that you spend in a taxi, if you have a car, if you rent a car, You can use that $100 for an entire week of driving, depending on how much you drive. If you drive so much, right? Like when I first got a car, I used to drive up and down everywhere in Barbados. But if you drive so much, it can last you from Sunday to Wednesday. The same $100 that you spend one way with a taxi, you can use it for 4 days, 3 days, even if you're driving everywhere, right? I literally drove around Barbados in 3 hours, and it was like what, 20, $30 or so, um, fuel that I used. About $30 to $50. I don't remember exactly how much fuel. Try that with a taxi. You're going to spend at least $250 to $300 minimum, right? Assuming you will find a taxi guy that can take you on that tour. So that's the problem. When you live in a place that needs taxi for your journey, you spend a whole heap of money. And that's just the normal rate. It's not like they're inflating the prices or they're trying to cheat you or scam you or whatever. That's just the normal rate. So, as much as possible, when you're booking your trip here, make sure that you're staying somewhere that is close to the bus routes so that you can just come out of your house, walk onto the road, enter a bus, and go to Bridgetown. From Bridgetown, you can get a bus going to anywhere, right? But if you live in the middle of nowhere and you need a taxi to take you out from there to somewhere, you're going to spend a lot of money. And I didn't know that because at first I was just like optimizing for, I don't know, rent prices or something. I don't even know what I just picked a random place in Barbados and said, okay, we're going to live here. And then you find out that buses don't pass through there. You have to walk like 20 minutes to go to a bus stop. And then from there, you have to wait for like 30 minutes because the buses pass there once every hour or once every 2 hours. And then all of those stuff. And then sometimes you want to get to somewhere and you want to get back. So the bus is just unreliable for that place. And so you have to call a taxi to do that. And you just find yourself blowing a lot of money versus sit in a place that has good bus routes and times, and you can just come out, the bus will take you where it's going, bring you back, and you can continue with the rest of your day. Good examples of places like this are anywhere in Bridgetown. There are a lot of buses that goes there. Places like Oysters, places around Whole Town, yeah, St. James, the Whole Town side, a lot of buses pass through there. Always, every time buses pass through there. Uh, I don't know where again. Warrens. Warrens is a good place. Six Roads. I haven't spent a lot of time in Six Roads, so I can't really tell you. But it looks like a place where a lot of buses pass. So I'm not 100% sure about that. And there are probably some other places. Just do your research, right? Pick a nice place so you don't blow a lot of money. And if you can afford it, the sooner you get a car, especially if you're going to stay here long term, the sooner you get a car, the more money you're going to save long term. You have control over your time, you have control over where you can go and where you can't go, you have control over when you can go, you can drive out whenever you want, you don't have to wait for a specific bus time if you're leaving. You can live wherever you want because you know that if you want to go out, you can just pick up your car and go out, right? So that's another advantage of having a car. You can optimize for rent prices, for example, live in a place that is rent price is very cheap, and then use your car to drive out of that place, even if buses don't go to that place all the time. So you can do whatever you want. As soon as possible, try to get a car if you're living here long term. If you're not living here long term and you're just here for vacation or a few weeks, try to stay in a place that has good bus traffic, and you'll be fine. You'll spend good, like small amount of money, reasonable amount of money on transportation, and you can use the rest of your money on things you actually enjoy, and not just on getting from point A to point B. All right. Okay. And then finally, a way you can save money is Tourist spots. If you're going to buy stuff at tourist spots, it's better to take stuff to tourist spots. Let me give you a very good example. I I I buy Coca-Cola a lot, right? I if it's one of the drinks that I like a lot. So if I'm having a if I'm going to celebrate a birthday or something or whatever, I'm just going to buy Coca-Cola. It's the drink that I know I will always like. If I try another drink, I may not like it. I may not. What drink do you have? Coca-Cola is just safe, right? And then I can also use it to regulate how much sugar I'm drinking, how much calories I'm drinking, because I've read the entire fact sheet about Coca-Cola and everything. So I'm more of a Coca-Cola expert now. But in Barbados, you can buy Coke for about, depends on where you are, but it ranges anywhere from $3 to about $4, right? So some people might say 275, 325, 350, 375, depending on where you are in Barbados. The price will be about that, $3 to $4. However, if you go to some very touristy places, the beaches, right? You can see the same bottle of Coke, the exact same bottle of Coke being sold on that beach for $4 USD. So we go from $3 Bajan to $4 USD. That three and the conversion rate is 1:2. So $3 Bajan is about $1.5 USD. And it goes up to $4 USD. And this is the same with other things like chicken and chips or I don't know, crisps, burger, anything. If you go to a place that has a lot of like buzz on the internet about it, the prices there just increase. So you may be thinking, oh, I'm just going to go here and buy it. Oh, it's cheap because maybe you're comparing it to your country and cost of living in your country, who knows? But you're just thinking, oh, it's cheap. But it's actually cheaper to buy it from a normal shop place and take it to the beach than to buy it at the beach. So if you go to a lot of touristy beach places, buy your drinks and your snacks and whatever where you live and just put it in a bag and take it with you to the beach. Because if you try to buy from some of these beaches, you're just going to be wasting money for no reason. A bottle of water in some shops can be as low as $2 Bajan. But in some of these places, I have seen a bottle of water being sold for $5 US. US dollars five. Right. So it's ridiculous. So try to, you know, observe observe the prices of things. Just look at the prices of things and realize that they're charging you because they're popular on Instagram, not because that is the value of the product in Barbados, right? And trust me, trust me, a $2 Coke and a $4 Coke taste exactly the same. So you don't have to buy the $4 Coke. I don't know why I'm laughing, but I remember uh me and a friend went to a beach and I don't want to call the place, but it was a really nice place, to be honest. It was a really nice place. And we went there and we went up to a guy that was selling drinks and snacks and burgers, fries, those kind of stuff. I just said, let's look at the menu. And we looked at the menu and we were thinking like we're just going to buy the same things we buy because I always eat chicken and fries or burger. Or if you have rice, I'm going to eat rice. That's generally what I buy everywhere I go. Unless you have something really interesting, then I'm going to buy that. So I looked at the menu. everything. It was just a beachside stuff. It wasn't like a fancy restaurant or anything. Everything started around $40, 40 Bajan. Even for like a little snack thing was around 40 Bajan, and it went up to 80 Bajan dollars. I was looking at this menu like, are we still in Barbados? I didn't understand it at all. And then I said, okay, let's not eat anything here. Let's just get a drink. And then I said, let's get a Coke. How much is that? And the guy said, $4 US. And I just looked at him and I looked at my friend and I looked at him and we just started laughing. And the guy too started laughing because even though even though he walks like even though he works there, he knows that the prices there are just ridiculous for somebody who lives in Barbados and knows Bajan prices. And he just started laughing and we were laughing. I was like, are you serious? He said, that's the price here. And I said, oh, well, you just do your thing. And there's no way I'm buying that. And we just left the place. It was such a very funny thing. But this is something that a lot of tourists actually don't know about. They just pay whatever they're told because they don't know that they can get it better. Or maybe they just don't care. But if you don't care and you just want to buy it, then just buy it. But if you think that that's the best deal that you can get, trust me, it's not the best deal. Go to a place that is not a touristy place, just a normal shop or whatever, where you don't see a lot of people taking pictures. That's how you know place is a touristy place. If you see a lot of people gathered and taking pictures and they're all in bikinis and going to the beach, then you know that some of the people who are selling there are going to double the prices. And you'll still see people who sell it at the normal Barbados price, but I guess it's just the demand and supply law of economics kind of thing. So it doesn't it's not a bad thing. It's just if you don't know, it's an interesting thing. Anyway, that's that about that. So number four, what is the fourth thing that I didn't know about Barbados before coming here? The government of Barbados has easy to navigate processes, right? As somebody who comes from Nigeria, a lot of the processes in the countries in Africa, many countries in Africa, are quite cumbersome. If you want to get a simple thing done, you have to go to this office and you go to that office and you greet this one and this one signs it here and you beg this one and you talk to this one and sometimes you're just waiting for 2 weeks because you don't know what the hell is going on, and then you go back to this office and you ask this person what happened, where was the process, and then they tell you, oh, you still have to do this. And before you get a simple thing done, sometimes it's very stressful and people take out an entire day, or sometimes you have to go back multiple days for weeks or months on end to get a simple thing done. So when I came to Barbados, I was that's how I grew up. So I just expected it to be like that, right? But because of that, I didn't get my national ID. I think the entire first year I was here, I didn't get a national ID. I was still using my passport as my identification, and I didn't also process my driver's license because I was very busy and I was imagining, well, I have to spend the whole day and then the next day and then I have to follow up and everything. And then one day I was coming back from church and we were discussing with a woman and she said, oh, have you got your national ID? And I said, no, I haven't got the time. And she's like, what do you mean you don't have the time? Like, just go to the office and say you're here for your national ID. And I was like, what? She said, yeah, you just go and you give them your details. They'll tell you a time to come back and they'll give you. And that was the first time I realized that, oh, different country. Maybe I shouldn't judge them by the same standards that I'm used to. And then I went to the office and I said, oh, I'm here for my national ID. And then they said, oh, do you have a form of identification? I said, yeah. They say, we'll need your passport. I said, okay. I gave them my passport and then they put me in a line. And when it was my turn, I went up there and I took a photo And they gave me a piece of paper. They said, come back on the blah 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 of this month. And it was like a few weeks ahead because they were backlogged. And then they said, I said, okay. And on that day, I went back and they just gave me my ID. That's it. Literally, that's it. I just, I literally just went, stood in line, took a picture, and came back. No drawn out forms, no six people had to sign something, no print this, take it to this place, scan this, send this, get this person to sign this, get this person to stamp this, get nothing like that. Just straightforward, simple process. Oh my God. I don't know if you come from a country where the government process is easy, this may not mean anything to you. But for me, it was, whoa, it was like a new, it blew my mind. And then I said, if the national ID is like this, then what about the driver's license? And then I found out the government had already documented the entire driver's license process. What do you need to do? Oh, you need to register. Then you're going to get this book that the government produces, by the way. So it's not like this person tells you, oh, we don't know what may come out and then you may have to do. No, the government just tells you, we're going to test you from the knowledge of this book, right? And this is everything we need you to know before you can drive on the road. And I took the book and I read the book, and then they tell you what score you need to get to pass. So I wrote the exam and I passed. And then they say, okay, now you need to drive. And then we're going to test you to see if you can drive. And I came on the test day and it was my turn. They called my name. I went, I tested, I passed. And then I stayed there. They gave me a document. I gave the document to the people who would do the cards, and they told me when to come back. I came back on that day. I got my card, my driver's license. Boom, just like that. The process is very simple. If you see something documented by the government of Barbados, that is what you're going to get when you go to interact with the government of Barbados. If they write something, you will go to this office and then you will present them with this document and you will get this. When you go to that office and present them with that document, they will give you that thing they said they will give you. Like it sounds like that is how it should be, but trust me, you haven't tried to process something from a government that frustrates your life. You haven't tried it. When you go through a very stressful process with government, multiple stressful processes with government, you don't want to deal with any other government body anymore unless you absolutely have to. So when I came to Barbados and for more than a year, I didn't get my ID. That was the reason. But then, boom, I got it. And if you're coming here and you plan to stay here for a long time, get your driver's license as early as possible. But that's assuming you don't have a driver's license already. Because if you have a driver's license already, it's very easy. You can just convert it to a Barbados license. They recognize a lot of countries, their driver's license. So you just go and then you convert it. If your country doesn't speak English, like Mexico or something, you would need to get it officially translated. You can do that at the University of the West Indies. And it will get officially translated to English. Then you take that official document and you just convert it to a Barbados license. So if your country is not like the country you got your license in is not recognized, and they do recognize a lot of countries, so I don't know which ones they don't recognize, but it's very simple. You just take the test and you get your license. So I recommend you get your license early because if you plan to rent a car, many of the rental companies here do not take licenses that are younger, should I say younger, earlier than 2 years, right? So you have to have had your license for at least 2 years before they will rent you a car. I don't know whether this is an insurance problem or just a common practice with the people in Barbados or whatever, but I can't get anybody to rent me a car for um that my license is less than 2 years, right? So it's just not possible. They just won't agree, and I don't know why, but doesn't matter. If you have your own car, then it doesn't matter, right? But if you're planning to rent a car before you get a car, then you need at least 2 years for most companies. Some, if you're friends with some people and they absolutely trust you and whatever, they may give it to you, but most people who do it as a business, they won't give you. So the sooner you get your driver's license and your national ID, the better. I would recommend that the same week you land in Barbados, if you plan to stay here for long, you're not a tourist or just somebody that's passing for 2 days or something. The same week you land in Barbados, just go and do the national ID and register for the written driver's license exam. Just do that. Because when you register, you have, they'll give you, I think when I did my own, they'll give you time to pick when your exam is going to be. And in that time, you can finish the entire book. It's really simple and it's common sense. And you just need to understand some of the signs, especially the road signs. And then the rest is basically common sense, really. And you read it, you'll be ready for the exam and you write it, and then all you have to do is the driving test. The national ID, once you go there, they'll give you a date, and then in 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on how many people are getting their IDs at that during that same period, it will take, I think the max it has been for me is about 4 weeks, and then they'll just call you back and give you your ID. So that way, um, you have your documents so you can stop using your passport as identification. Your driver's license, Barbados driver's license, can also start counting for 2 years, and that's also a good thing, right? So do it. Don't be afraid of the government processes. It's very easy to navigate, and they even have an official site, right, where you can see all the laws of Barbados, all the rules. You can also check online official Barbados website to show you everything you need to know about any part of government processes that you want to navigate and what to expect, what documents you should present, and everything. And believe me, 100%, at least in my experience, 100% exactly what they tell you is what you will experience there. Exactly. It's beautiful to watch. Such a efficient process. Which brings me to number 5. When dealing with the police, please and please cooperate with them. This is something that you have to, if you live in a place where the police is just, for lack of a better word, trash, you have to unlearn your personal biases and prejudices against the police and understand that the police in Barbados is quite different. In my experience, I have encountered 5 different kinds of police officers and I have categorized them and classified them. The first kind of police officers that I've encountered, and just so you know, Barbados is the 5th kind on my list, so I'll go through all 5 of them and you understand what I mean. The first kind of police officer that I've encountered in Barbados, no, not in Barbados. I mean, in my life. Barbados is the fifth kind. The first kind is the unavailable police officer. This is especially when you're living in a place that has a large population or large land mass, and the police is understaffed or doesn't have enough resources. And so they will usually be concentrated and centered in urban areas, cities, and those kind of places. And if you live in rural areas or more along the outskirts or borders between cities or states, you basically have no police. It's jungle justice, essentially, right? This is usually because it's understaffed and they don't work in rural areas. So you don't even have an understanding of what a competent police, or if a police is even useful, because you have lived your whole life without interference or intervention of police. So they don't mean anything to you, right? The second kind are the police that are grossly incompetent. Grossly incompetent. Whether it's because the individuals themselves are just incompetent, like they don't know how to do their jobs, or because they don't have the resources they need to do their jobs, whether they're underfunded, understaffed, or whatever. But police cannot stop or reduce crime. Police cannot intervene in serious issues. Police doesn't show up when you call 911. I had an experience one time where they were robbing uh they were robbing our neighbor, and we called the emergency line of police. That this is not in Barbados. This is before I moved to Barbados. And they were robbing the our neighbor. We called the emergency line. Mind you, we lived about 1.5 kilometers from the police station. To put this in perspective, I can run an entire kilometer in just 6 minutes. If I'm on my legs, I can go a kilometer in 6 minutes. We called the emergency line. They asked us, "Oh, what's going on?" We said, "They're robbing our neighbor. Come quickly." Blah blah blah. The thief eventually escaped, and he stole like a tablet and some money and stuff like that. He didn't harm anyone. He escaped. And then we waited for the police. Ladies and gentlemen, it took the police about 45 minutes. See, if you're driving a car, you can cover a kilometer in 2 minutes, probably even less. Somehow, it took the police personnel, officers, about 45 minutes to get from their office to the emergency location. Emergency. 45 minutes. When they came, the person in charge was only wearing his jacket, his uniform jacket. He was wearing flip flops on his feet and a random trouser, and only his jacket was a uniform. He came with two other guys. Those two other guys were supposed to be police, I guess, but they were just dressed casually, and they were walking around the building and looking around, and then they say, "Oh, what happened?" And we said, "Well, they robbed," and we explained everything that happened. They said, "Oh, okay. You have to be careful and lock up. Make sure you lock up before you go to bed at night." And the whole time I was thinking, are you serious? This is why we called you guys. The second time that incident happened, we called again, and this time they never showed up. So we had to move. And guess where I was able to find safety? The next landlord we had a reputation for being basically ruthless with anyone that stole from him. So there was zero crime in that neighborhood because our landlord was he was a buff, huge, muscular guy. He was ruthless with criminals, and his neighbors basically had the same kind of mindset as him. So there was no robbery, there was no crime, there was no harassment at all in that place the whole time I stayed there. So I'm now wondering if jungle justice, basically the fear of a man that is ruthless on criminals, he will basically beat or even kill robbers if they rob him. That is the kind of person he was known as. And is that is safer than government police. Then in my books, the government police is incompetent, right? Grossly incompetent. If it has to come down to jungle justice. So I don't know whether it was because the individuals themselves were grossly incompetent or because they didn't have resources. Maybe they don't have guns, maybe they don't have fuel to drive to the location, maybe they don't have enough staff and they don't know whether they can overpower the thief, maybe they don't have training, they don't know how to do martial arts, they don't know how to subdue people. Maybe they're not safe. Maybe they feel like if they counter this crime, these criminals are going to recognize their faces and attack their families or something. I don't know. I don't know the reason, but they're grossly incompetent. That's the second kind. So the first kind, they're just unavailable. Second kind, they're available, but they're grossly incompetent. Third kind is the ones that use excessive force. For these ones, um, everybody's a criminal. You're walking down the street, hey, freeze, put your hands up, get down, get down, get down. You're driving your car, hey, put your hands where I can see you and get off car, get down, get down, get down. You're coming into a building, they jump on you, get down, put your hands behind you, get down. They try to subdue everything they come across. No questions asked. Shoot on sight. Push everyone down. Everybody's a criminal until proven otherwise. I think many times these police officers deal with like high stress situations, and it's better maybe if they use excessive force than they don't use enough force and a criminal actually gets his way. Maybe that's how they think it. I don't know. I'd have no way to justify them. But I don't know. These are also bad because then people don't trust the police. Because I've seen two cases before where somebody calls a police to a crime scene and the person is arrested together with everyone else at the crime scene, right? Everybody's arrested, put in jail for questioning, right? And then you have to bail yourself out. So I don't know what that is. People just lose trust in police. And then you have the fourth type, which are the corrupt police. You find a lot of these in Africa. They set up checkpoints, they harass everybody, they shoot civilians, they take bribes. There are about three cases that I've seen where you can actually pay the police to arrest somebody for no reason, right? I've seen these cases. So if you have an argument with someone and you don't like what the person said about you, or I don't know, you feel like you are losing the argument for whatever reason, you can, while you're having the argument, you can call the police and they will come and you will pay them. They will take your friend away to jail and your friend will have to bail himself out. That exists as a police system, right? And you have checkpoints where they will just put up roadblocks and checkpoints and just take money from civilians. Just like that. When you reach the checkpoint, give us money. And they just take it. Then they let you go. If you don't give them money, they arrest you. And they put something on you. They put like assaulting a police officer or carrying drugs or whatever. They just think of something and accuse you of that and arrest you, and you have to bail yourself. So having experienced these four kinds of police, the unavailable kind, the grossly incompetent kind, the excessive force kind, and the just straight up corrupt kind, you can imagine my surprise when I came to Barbados and I found useful police officers that are actually useful. They actually know their job. They actually do what they're supposed to do. They don't just make up the law as they go. They don't use their privilege and their position as just means to get whatever they want and operate. One of the very interesting things I saw in Barbados was that police officers in a police car were just sitting in traffic. Like there was a go slow traffic jam kind of situation during rush hour. And they were just part of the traffic jam. It was surprising to me because police never, growing up, I have never seen a police in traffic jam. If a police officer comes to traffic jam, he will turn on his siren, clear everyone, and drive past. They just use it like however they want. They use the siren whether there's an emergency, whether there's no emergency, they just turn on the siren, clear everyone, and go. If sometimes they just do it They just use like police cars to do whatever, like they're going to church and they don't want to be late. They will just turn on the siren and drive to church and be there in time. Or if they're in market and it's rush hour and everybody is trying to come out and there's traffic jam or whatever, they'll just turn on their siren and drive out. Just misuse of government resources, misuse of their position of power, right? And in Barbados, you don't see that. You see police driving with sirens when there is an emergency. And when there is no emergency, they actually just sit in traffic. It's incredible. I mean, it's normal if you're used to this. But for someone like me who has experienced the other four kinds of police officers and police systems, it's strange, right? And part of the reason is because they're not afraid for their lives, or they're not corrupt, and people don't wish them bad. Do you understand? There is due process. There's a legal system that works. If you're arrested and you're taken to court, you can expect a fair court process. I've never read of a single case in Barbados, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never read of a single case in Barbados that after the final ruling of the judge was passed, it was considered unjust or it was suspected to be influenced by bribery and corruption, which is amazing. There are countries where, and there are states where every single ruling is bribery. I'm not exaggerating. If you go to court and somebody is found innocent, it is because he bribed the judge and the judge said he was innocent. If somebody is found guilty, it's because somebody else bribed the judge to call this guy guilty so that this guy can be removed as a competitor for business, as a political candidate or competitor or whatever. It's all messed up and rigged. But when you come to Barbados, you can actually, I mean, I'm going to say this all the time, right? There is going to be one random Judas that will give the police a bad name. There's going to always be one guy. There will always be one guy who will think that he can get away with it, and he will try to do some silly stuff. But again, do not judge Christians by the actions of Judas. Judge them by the teachings of Christ. That's what I always say. So, if you look at Barbados in general, you will see that the police are actually trying their best. When there is an increase in crime, there is a matched increase in the response of the police officers to try to curtail that crime, to try to bring it down, to combat crime, right? When you have an increase in shootings, you see that police officers increase their efforts, and next minute on the news, you're seeing they caught this number of criminals, they recovered this number of guns and ammunitions, right? You see people who actually like they actually think about their job as police officers and actually care about people's safety. This is supposed to be normal, but it's not. It's not in many countries and in many states. And that's why it's funny when you see something normal and you're rejoicing about something normal because you haven't seen it in such a long time. All right, so these are the five things, right? Barbados, one, is not a predominantly racist country. Two, it values community and friendliness very highly. Three, if you're not careful, you will spend or waste a lot of money. Four, The government of Barbados has easy to navigate processes, so take advantage of that. You do your government things, don't be afraid. It's not going to waste your whole day or your whole weeks or months. And then five, cooperate with the police, right? Cooperate with the police. Even though uh it's not something you hear in many countries like the United States or the UK or Nigeria or Brazil or wherever. Cooperating with the police is something you can actually do safely in Barbados. All right. You can actually do safely in Barbados, and you can trust that you will get a fair treatment. All right, so that's the end of the video. This is, I'm thinking of doing more videos like this. Tell me what part of what I just explained that you didn't previously know, and other things that I might have missed and people should know before they move to Barbados. Maybe your experiences if you're a foreigner, or your experiences as a local. Is it the same as my experiences? Let me know in the comment below. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.